We welcome you tonight to Greasy Creek Baptist Church, and we pause tonight to remember our veterans, and we appreciate their service. If you've never been here with us before, if this is your first time, we want you to feel at home. And some of you, I'm certain this is, you come out and celebrate with us annually, and we certainly appreciate that. Got a lot of good things in store for tonight, and guest speaker, and so we're excited to hear him. And we appreciate your attendance. And if you love the Lord tonight and you're glad that you still live in a free country, say amen. Amen.
Everybody, please stand with us for the procession of the flag and the Bible. Welcome Katie Tucker. She comes to
We're going to start with the pledge to American flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're going to do the the Christian flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the Christian flag and to the Savior for whose kingdom stands, one brotherhood, uniting all Christians in service and love. And now we're going to pledge the Bible. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, and hide His words in my heart, that I may not sin against God.
I'd like to ask, you can maybe see you. Ask Brother Victor Matthew to come up and open us up with a word of prayer.
Would you bow with me? Most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, I want to give you thanks for the many blessings you blessed us with, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity to have to come, Lord, and to share. Lord, just thank you for each veteran that's here tonight. Lord, we pray to be with them. Lord, I want to remember each veteran that has served. Lord, the men and women that have given, whether they have given in sacrifice of their life. Some have given it all. Lord, some, but all have given. We thank you for that service that each veteran has given to us. Where we have the freedom to stand here tonight and to be here because they stood in some places that we couldn't. Lord, I just thank you for the freedom that you give us. Lord, you died on the cross to release us from our sins and forgive us. And thank you for that. The veterans stood so people wouldn't take that freedom away from us. The freedom to worship you. Lord, I just thank you for that. I pray that you be with each veteran's home, each family. Lord, just comfort them and heal and guide them. Lord, pray for our country, that the leaders of the country, they will seek your will and your guidance in the decisions they make. Lord, your way is it's the only way that we can turn back or be where we need to be. Just listen to being with us. Just be with the rest of this service and give thanks to those who have saved. Just forgive us and go with us and lead us in all your way. It's in Christ's precious name I ask you. Amen.
Mr. Cole Clark has got a poem he's going to read for us.
Veterans Day by Cheryl Dyson. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to that service call. Soldiers young and soldiers old, fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and our lives. They fought through many days and nights. And that though we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Welcome up this group of young kids here. They've been working hard. They got a special little piece they can do for us. tonight. We think she's pretty special. Layla Rising, she's going to sing the national anthem for us.
Before I sing, I just wanted to say thank you for all the veterans because I'm so blessed to have y'all here because without y'all we may not be standing here right now. So thank y'all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave?
As we ask Dr. Mark Rising to come up and announce recognition of the veterans, we ask when your name is called, if you would stand and remain standing until a child comes and sees you.
Good evening. Good to see y'all tonight. I told her everything she knew about that. Yes, I did. I told her I was going to sing, but she told me that I might not ought to. All right. Well, I would like to thank you all for coming tonight. This day of respect and recognition. And many of the veterans, you have to say reflection. Appreciate all y'all do. Like we've said before, where would this nation be if we didn't have men and women who have done the things that they've done for us in the past to give us the freedoms and rights that unfortunately I think some of us sometimes take for granted. So I appreciate everybody and all of the past veterans who have passed on, and of course the present ones, and also the future, because we will need more. I'm going to read the names, so everyone help me in recognizing. Larry Clark. Wendell Sullivan. George Austin. Jim Myers. Jerry Arnett. Kenneth Creason. Sam Thompson. J.D. Pruitt. Carl Berry. Lewis Clark, Mickey Vaughn, Ralph Huff, Todd Rogers, Woodson Risen, Tony Magny, Milburn Moss, Jack Stump, Bill Van Cleve, Brandon Curry, Eugene Matney, Virgil No, Harold McCoy, Billy Matney, Russell Bagby, Leo Curry, Wayne Matney, Jeremy Austin, Brett Guthrie, Ron Cheatham, Charles Jones. Now, are there any here that we didn't have your name? No? Thank you, gentlemen.
Weston Dixon's going to come up and explain to us this sitting right here.
America's White Table. The table is round to show our everlasting devotion and concern for our fallen and missing comrades. Cloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their mothers when entering the cold of age. The single red rose displayed in the vase reminds us of life and blood that was shed and their loved ones and friends who keep the faith and wait answers. The vase is tied with a red ribbon and the symbol of our commitment and continued determination to account for our missing. The slice of lemon on the plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in foreign lands. The salt is to remind us of the tears endured by those missing and their families who still seek answers. The black napkin is a reminder of isolation, deprivation, and cruel fare for our missing. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain those lost from our country, founded as one nation under God. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share this evening with us. The chair is empty because they are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light and hope that lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home.
Everybody, just join me and bow your head and take a moment of silence for the ones that couldn't be here with us and the ones that has passed on before us.
introducing our guest speaker. Before I do, it's most appropriate to do as many other speakers have done and simply say thank you. Thank you to the veterans, those that were recognized, those that aren't with us here tonight. And thank you to those families that support and love and care for those veterans. And thank you to this community and this church for honoring them in such a special way. Congressman, I've had the opportunity over the last few years to speak here twice. And I've got to tease Larry just a little because both times you were the number one pick and they just defaulted to me. So I stood in both times for you, and they're so excited to have you here tonight. It is truly an honor for us to have Brett Guthrie. Congressman Guthrie represents the 2nd Congressional District. If I'm not mistaken, you were just elected to your 5th term. He was just elected to his 5th term as a result of the election this past Tuesday. And I've gotten to know Brett quite well over the last few years. And it's interesting, the very first activity that I participated in as a state senator when I was elected to office in Frankfort, the first activity, the first vote I took was a vote to accept his resignation. And so our paths kind of crossed as he left Frankfort and headed off to Washington. Never had the chance to serve with him in a legislative role, but had heard great stories about him. And as I followed his career over the last few years, if you look at the activities he's been involved in as our congressman in Washington, D.C., a lot of that's involved energy and commerce. A lot of that's involved education, two of the vitally important committees that he serves on now. I've watched his legislative activity and learned from him over the years and admired him much. But I think my admiration grew the most for him for a recent award that he got that very few people know of. And I noticed this, my wife and I, as we were there a few years ago with the children touring Washington, D.C., he was so personal with us and with just about every person we met. From the folks that swept the floors, to the folks that kept the rolls, to the clerks. He knew all of them by name, and they all knew him. And so recently, he was voted as the most liked congressman in Washington, D.C. And that speaks volumes about this man. He's not only someone who'll show up here at Greasy Creek to celebrate this veteran service with us. He'll walk the halls of Congress and be greatly respected. He also arrives in front of us as a veteran. As a veteran graduating in 1987 from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, he went on to serve as a field artillery officer in the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault at Fort Campbell. Please welcome Congressman Brett Guthrie.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be here. And I guess at LP's urging, David offered the invitation. So if you don't like what I say, then David and LP are the ones you need to go to. It is great to be here. It's great to be in this community, and particularly this week, celebrating what our veterans do. And those of you who know me, you don't get to be, and I was more proud of being the light because it's by the staff. It's not my fellow members of Congress, the people that work in Washington. And so kind of my disposition isn't to be divisive and move forward. And I think a lot of us were frustrated with the nature of the campaign over the last few months and ready for it to be over. And it became, I'm only going to say this about the election, it became, there were stories in the national media, I feel like I'm echoing, national media about during the campaign, about look at our foreign friends, they look at us, and we're supposed to be the example, so it really became like kind of derogatory, some of the news media, not our local news media, some about us. But it was actually Wednesday morning, but it's sort of Tuesday night, but it was about 2 o'clock Wednesday morning. If you heard the words of President-elect Trump, then the next morning at the Rose Garden you heard the words of President Obama, and then later that day you heard the words of Secretary Clinton. We are the beacon of hope through the world. We had the most divisive campaign that I remember, probably not in American history actually, but that I can remember. I think Andrew Jackson Johnson again with that honor. But in the next day, we're sitting there organizing the graciousness of the President, of the Secretary Clinton, and of President-elect Obama to come together for what we always talk about and we mention every time, the peaceful transition of power. But it is phenomenal. So we are the beacon to the world about how we have elections. And people can be disappointed. I've been disappointed on the results of elections. But in the end, I think President Obama said it the best. I just can't give him any more credit than the speech that he gave in the Rose Garden. If he didn't see an opportunity to do so, about this is what we do as Americans, come together and help the next president. So I do want to tell one story that really had a lot to do with Veterans Day. I like to tell it. And I want to talk about some experiences y'all allow me to have as your member of Congress and how it relates to Veterans Day. But the first one really doesn't, but I enjoy telling it, and different people enjoy hearing it. And it is, I can't make it up, it's actually a true story, but the Pope came to Washington, D.C. last year. And so the Pope was going to go up Independence Avenue in the Pope Mobile, so a lot of, I know LP and some others have been to Washington, the House office buildings are across the street from the Capitol. Well, all that was fenced off between the two, because that's where the Pope was going to go. So I was out walking around in the morning, just kind of getting the moment, and I know I'm Catholic, but it was a big day, and the Pope's respect the Pope, and just there were a lot of people coming, particularly from my district, from Nelson County, Marion County. You could see they were just so excited. And so I was going out kind of taking in the moment, and I saw these people up ahead of me before the ceremony, ahead of me trying to cross the street, and I'm thinking, these people they're a mile away from crossing the street, because that's where the next gate is. And I said, I'm going to be Kentucky nice. I have kind of a badge that gets me across the street, so I'm going to go up and help these people across the street if that's where they're going to see the Pope. And I get right up to him, right as I got it. I was actually almost up to him when I realized it was Coach Calipari. And what luck is that, right? There's Coach Cal and a couple other people. So I get him across the street and he goes, would you like to go to lunch? And I had something to do that day, but I said, sure, I'll go to lunch. So who wouldn't do that one, right? So I went so Coach Cal, Hal Rogers, and a guy named Chris Lyons, the four of us, were at lunch at a place called the Capitol Hill Club. That's actually where Paul Ryan and President-elect Trump met yesterday. So we're having lunch there, and a girl who's married, a girl from Kentucky, is married to a congressman from Kansas. So she came over, and her guest for the Pope was his family, who had a 10 and 12-year-old girl, and it was after the Pope had spoken and left. So she comes over to me, and she goes, do you think Coach Cal would take a picture with these two girls? They bleed blue. They're from Henderson County, and they bleed blue. And I'll ask him. I didn't really know Coach Cal, quite honest. So I just, and if you know him, some of you may know him better than me. What do you think? He's like, bring them here. Let's take pictures. And if you don't like Kentucky basketball, if you don't like Coach Cal, the way he treated those two girls, treated them like they were princesses. Took pictures, and mussed their hair, did everything. So they go sit down, and Coach Cal sits down. And so my friend's wife from Union County looked over to me. She goes, Brett, thanks for doing this. This just made their day. And I go, made their day? They just saw the Pope. So maybe Coach Cal is, so I always thought that was kind of funny. So maybe Kentucky basketball is a little. I want to talk one thing about what our office can do for veterans. And I always try to move this forward. One thing that we've learned recently, or not just recently, but since we've been in, a lot of people are trying to collect medals that they should have had or receive medals that they never received. And so we're reaching out to people, and a lot of it is grandparents talking to grandchildren and talking about their time. And I had this award, but I don't know where it is, or I can't find it. I never had it received to me. And it kind of came to me one day. I was at a place in Butler County, and if you go to, a lot of us will go to like firehouses and picnics and things like that, and usually all the politicians sit at the same table. Well, I try to find somebody I don't know. So I went and sat next to this couple, and the guy started talking about he had the Purple Heart from World War II. But he said it was a kamikaze plane that hit my ship. I got nicked. I just got scratched. But I wish I'd have had it. I wish I'd have got it. And his wife said, I wish you'd have gotten that award. You should have been shot. And I go, he was shot. You ought to be shot. They said, he was shot. Actually, scrapbook, but the same thing. And but he wanted it for his grandkids. And so we found that it was in his records. I was able, great honor for me, to put a Purple Heart on a World War II veteran. Not too long. Unfortunately, we've lost him recently. But those are the kind of things. So anything in veterans, we want to make sure we move forward. I want to talk about Veterans Day, and then I'll close in 3 experiences. One, it's so appropriate we're doing this in church. And it's so appropriate that we had the pledge to the Bible. Because I always look back to doing these kinds of things back to Joshua. Remember, the Israelites were led across the Jordan. They get to the Jordan River, and Joshua gets there. It's like, wow, they got to cross the river. And God made it flow backwards. Easy to cross the river when God stops its flow, right? So think about that, seeing the Jordan River stop flow and flow backwards so you can cross. Would you ever forget that? So they go across, they get across, and God tells Joshua to get one person from each tribe go back to the riverbed before I let the water flow again and get a stone and take these 12 stones and make a memorial so your children will remember. Think about that. Just think about it. If you were one of those who crosses, who would ever forget that you stopped the river from flowing? But the God who designed us knew that we needed memorials, that we needed reminders. The God who knows everything about us says, if you don't have reminders, if you don't take time to remember the great events of the world history that you never get, you'll forget. So it's appropriate that we build, as a matter of fact, it's endorsed by God, that we take time and moments from the book of Joshua to do this. And so it's very appropriate that we do. I want to tell 3 quick stories about experiences I've had as a member of Congress relates to this. One is here in the 2nd District. Grayson County has a Memorial Day parade. And it's not a big parade with bands. What it is they have signs with every name of every person from Grayson County who has died in service to our country. And they walk down Main Street of Grayson County, and it starts in the War of 1812, goes all the way to the current post 9/11 wars. And they have the name of every person that dies. And they go parading by with their names. And what they try to do is find a family member to carry that name. And sometimes they just don't have, especially World War II with so many of them. And so then members of the community volunteer to carry names. And so sometimes, particularly World War II, you'll see one Chamber of Commerce member holding 4 or 5 names as they walk down the street. So I'll tell that. So as they were going by, the very first one is the one from the War of 1812. And I remember just sitting there thinking, wow, thinking the history of it. The name goes by, the War of 1812. I guess there was somebody here during the War of 1812. I wonder. So then it goes by, of course, the Civil War. And you know the history of Grayson County. You're going, wow, I bet most of those are for the North and the South because this is Republican County and, you know, history goes back. So I'm trying to play in the history in mind. I go World War I, and I just read a book about had all the soldiers in the trenches and they were going to do a bombardment to move forward. This is actually before the Americans got there, the British, and they bombed out the dikes and dams on accident. They were trying to do a barrage on the Germans, and they knocked out the dikes and dams. Flanders is essentially Holland. It's not, it's Belgium, but it essentially is. So the old dike, finger in the dike, that's the kind of world. And soldiers drowned by the tens of thousands sitting in trenches. So I remember as all that's going by, you're just thinking of the big history. The World War II, several people holding. And then the very last family to walk through was from Iraq. And where you had, in World War II, one person holding 3 or 4 signs, you had 5 or 6 people holding 1 sign. And every one of them had a shirt with the face screen on it. Remember our brother, remember our uncle, remember our son, remember. And so it made it real. Because I was looking back through history, the War of 1812, it's so long ago, you read about Flanders Field and 400,000 British over the single battle. And you don't think about that's 400,000 moms and dads and families when you read about the history. But when you see it, this is every one of them was crying, every one of them was emotional, and everybody standing on the stage, I can tell you, was crying and emotional because it was raw and it was real. So every time we remember veterans, this is Veterans Day, not necessarily Memorial Day, so we remember all, but just the families and the sacrifice that moved forward. And one other, so the second story, I remember when I was a kid one time watching some 60-minute show, and they're talking about members of Congress taking junkets, and they were all playing golf in the Bahamas. Well, I decided to take a junket, so I signed up. I went to Yemen. That's supposed to be a joke. Yemen's not a junket. What I signed up for, I went to my leader of the committee, and I said, I want to go, there's the 4th of July, and I said, I want to go on the 4th of July to combat zone to be soldiers on the 4th of July to the group going. There was a group going to Yemen. So I have to go, so I want to describe Yemen to you. So we go to Yemen, and we have to land in a country called Djibouti, which is on the Horn of Africa. It was probably 108 degrees. We had to get off a plane that we're on to get on an armored plane. So they said, you can't go to Yemen without an armored plane. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound very nice, does it? So we go to armored plane, we get off, and of course they had the prop plane, it was a C-130, and you just had the heat. It was like somebody taking you and putting you in the dry heat. It was like having a hair dryer on your whole body. I've never been hotter and more miserable in my life standing on the flight line waiting to get on the airplane. So we get on the airplane. I'm not trying to make it sorry for me. I'm getting to the point. So we get on the airplane. We fly right over the Red Sea into Yemen. We land, and we have to have evasion drivers. You're going through Yemen. In Yemen, every adult male there has to carry a dagger. So it's all this chaotic city, Sinai. Everybody's carrying a dagger. Think about it. Everybody walking around with a dagger in their belt. And they all chew, it's not really a narcotic, but it acts like a narcotic called khat. So 80% of the people in Yemen are addicted to a narcotic. So they have daggers and they're all chewing a narcotic. So they're high with daggers. Several of them have AK-47s just walking around. So we go into the briefing we're getting from the State Department, see the soldiers there, meet with the soldiers, and they start talking about their missions. He goes, you realize all the mountains just here around us are filled with Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We ran them out of Afghanistan. That's where they went. They're in Yemen. They're all there. And so our soldiers every day are facing men with daggers, chewing khat, some carrying AK-47. We go to the president's residence, and the power went out. When we're having our meeting, and somebody leaves on me, goes, the first thing they do when they attack is knock out your power. It's like going to the White House and not having any power. Of course, it was just the power was out. That's how bad it is over there. It wasn't anything going on. So then they start talking about, remember the pirates, and we've gotten a little more control of that since we let our ships carry guns now, which is amazing we didn't. And so the pirates that were taken over, we're in the Red Sea. So you had Al-Qaeda, Arabian Peninsula, pirates, everybody walking around carrying guns, daggers, and chewing narcotic. And we couldn't wait to get out of there. We were there for 4 hours. And we get on the airplane, we're flying back, and the guy looked at me and goes, wow, if you're a bad person in the world, this is where you come. And I looked at him, he probably thought it too, but it came to me. And I said, we saw a lot of good people too, didn't we? He goes, well, did we see any good? And I said, oh, they were wearing American camouflage. They had the American flag on their left patch on their left sleeve. And every single one, they were there for 13 months. We could only take it for 4 hours. The heat was there too. 13 months. And every single one of them, volunteered. Think about that. Now, I'm sure their enlistment papers didn't put Yemen above Hawaii. But what they did say is, I love this country so much that if you train me and give me the equipment you need, you can send me anywhere you want to send me, because I love this country that much. And I left there, one, amazed at how people around the world live, but also left there absolutely confident in the future of our country. We have young men and women, and there were some in civilian clothes in the State Department, that are willing to put the comfort in their lives on the line because they believe in what we are. They believe what we did this week so much. My final story is one afternoon I had in Washington, and it was a day we're actually supposed to have we got called. I'm on the committee, and it was actually the healthcare bill was coming before my committee. And I was on the minority side. The Democrats called and said, it's going to be an all-day committee hearing. Don't do anything. We're going to be here all day. Well, it turned out they didn't have the votes at the time to do it. So they said, committee's canceled. Well, you don't have many days, and I know Dave will tell you in Frankfurt, you don't have many days where somebody says, wow, your schedule is now clear. We're going to start filling it up with other things. He says, no, I just need some time. I just want to go out. So I just was going to go exercise. So I went and put on walking shoes, walking clothes, and I was in the Capitol building, so we just walked the mall. I just wanted to go out and clear my head a little bit. And I didn't realize I was going to have the afternoon of a lifetime. I started, if you know the mall, if you know the geography of the mall, I started out of the Capitol building and started walking towards the Lincoln Memorial. And I got to the World War II Memorial. And I happened to get there just as an honor flight landed. And what the honor flight is, Southwest Airlines provides transportation for World War II, now Korean War veterans, to come to Washington, D.C. to see because unfortunately it took so long to build the World War II Memorial. So many of our World War II guys are so old, it's difficult to travel there. And so Southwest Airlines donates time to fly, donates the airline to fly them. So they're getting off a bus. And I happened to see an older man with a younger girl, probably grandfather and granddad, and they were walking around, and you can walk around the World War II Memorial. It's not just a statue, you can be in it. And I heard him talking, and he was talking about how he got to come home and have a family and have a granddaughter, but most of the people he served with didn't. And it was the survivor's remorse you could hear, the survivor's guilt you could hear, the pride in seeing the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the memorial of all the other people there. So I was standing there, and I thought, wow, and I'll tell you why. I said, I've got to go to the Korean Memorial now. So I went to the Korean Memorial. I had an uncle killed in Korea in 1952. So I went down to the Korean Memorial. I was born in 1964. I didn't know him. My father was actually only 12 when his brother died, but he said he'll never forget his father gathering them in their little living room, the house my grandmother in. So the only time I've ever seen your grandfather cry was reading back then you got a telegram. Reading the telegram that his brother wasn't going to be coming home. And so I went to the Korean Memorial, just kind of remember that. And actually, after my grandmother passed away, we found all my uncle's letters. And the letter dated the day before he died, which she would have received, because she had it, it was postmarked, she would have received it after she knew he was dead, was telling her he was about to come, he was about 2 weeks away from coming home. And the letter said, get the car ready, tell the girls Bobby Guthrie's coming home. And so my grandmother would have read that after she knew that her son had died. And so I just stood there thinking about what our families go through. Then I went across the mall, walk Lincoln Memorial, and there was a family, if you take a piece of paper, you can go to the Vietnam Memorial, and you can put it up against, you can take like you learned in crafts when you were in Sunday school, and you can shade, and the name on the wall shows up on the paper. And there was a second grade teacher. I'm 52, I'm not that much younger than Vietnam people, but when I'm 8 and they're 18, that 10 years is a big difference. And so I had a teacher, my second grade teacher. The only person I know on the wall personally, I didn't know him, but when I was in second grade, son was killed in Vietnam. So I went to find his name. And I was standing there, and there was a family, a mom about my mom's age, a lady about my mom's age, and a son, probably a little young guy, a little younger than me. But I don't know his story. But I stood there the whole time as they're just crying and coloring the name. I'm going, wow, that's probably a lady that didn't get to grow old with the love of her life. That's probably a son who never got to see his father. His father never got to see him grow up. Or never knew his father, and his father never got to see him grow up. And I had to get back, because I did have some things to do, so I hit the World War II, the Korean, and the Vietnam. And if you know the geography of the mall, I turned around to walk back, and there it is, the Capitol, the dome, the symbol of freedom, the symbol of what we did this week. It's not just a symbol of opportunity and freedom to us, but to the world. And I stood there, and I'll never forget. I go, wow, I get to serve there. You guys let me serve there. Because young men and women, families like the family from Iraq from Grayson County, go through what they go through, what my grandmother went through, what our soldiers in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Yemen today, what they're going through, so that on last Tuesday, we could all go to the polls and select people to go to that building to make the laws in the land that we live by. And I told myself that day, and maybe that's why I got that award. I don't know why I got that award, but I pledged to myself that day, I said, I am always going to serve under that dome with honor and respect to the people whose names are on those memorials. And if I ever fail to do so, it's time to go. Whether you decide for me first or I decide later, whenever it's time to go, because it is just so important. So I'll close with this. When I was a kid, I went to Washington, D.C. for the first time. That's how long ago it was. I remember Nixon being president when I was there, so it was before he was impeached. And when you went to Washington, D.C., you went to see, in the mall, you went to see the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, and the Washington Monument. That's what you saw. So the mall was about the three greats of American history. When people come to my office now and say, what did you do today? They say, oh, the World War II Memorial, Vietnam Memorial, the Korea. They do mention the Lincoln and Jefferson, but they really mention those memorials. That's what they talk about. So the mall, the most special place, the most special geography in our nation, is about veterans. And it's because of this generation of Vietnam veterans, this generation of World War II veterans, ensuring that the mall is transformed from being about three great Americans to about all great Americans that served in our military. I served, if you could have been in the military from 1775 till today, I served in the best time, the late 80s. So my service was a little different than what most people are today. But our mall, our government, everything owes everything we have. And that's why I believe, and I'm so proud, that we have transformed our National Mall to be about the people. Not that we dismiss the history of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, or Thomas Jefferson, but our history is so much more than the greats. Our history of the people who were great because they were willing to volunteer, to sacrifice, and to serve. And I'll always promise to you that I will keep that honor and that memory and the motivation to serve to honor their service, as long as you let me serve in Washington. Thank you very much.
come up and have been working on a song for the veterans. Children make their way downstairs. We have a meal here downstairs, and as a token of appreciation. And I think we'll ask Brother Roger to come back up and close us out with a prayer and blessing of the meal.
If you would stand tonight, thank you all, veterans, for your service and your work that you've done through the years. And we thank Congressman for being with us tonight, and Senator as well, and appreciate their attendance. Let's pray tonight. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the privilege to gather here tonight. We thank you for the privilege to live in a country where we're still free. Father, we ask that you bless each family that's represented here. Lord, I also ask that you bless the food that's been prepared. Lord, I ask that you bless the fellowship. Lord, we thank you for all that you've done for this nation, all that you're going to do. For in Christ's name we pray. Amen. As you're dismissed, please go through this door and down those steps.